I thought
Five was superb drama, but only a 5, I'm afraid.
I thought that was going in there.
There are so many memories for me that relate to Top Gear. Like back when I was in college, I would go to the cafeteria right before close. I'd ask for some free food that I could pack in some sort of like old Tupperware. I would go home, grab some corn chips and a can of old frijole beans and some off-brand cheese. I throw it all onto a plate, right? Pour the nearly expired chicken onto the like cheesy goodness after putting them in the microwave for a minute and a half, right? I'd make enough for 2 people. I'd run downstairs with my roommate, Michael Shaw. We'd watch 2 episodes of Top Gear while trying to sort through some IS-240 homework, which was awesome, except for the fact that IS-240 absolutely sucked, all right? I did not like the class. I don't remember the Excel formulas and nothing was very fun. But Top Gear was one of the few moments of genuine like happiness and proper automotive education I had with cars as I was going through college. And it was probably one of the only times I ever received some humor and some actual joy while going through the late nights of being at UW Eau Claire. And it was just a properly good show. And then it just disappeared, kind of, sort of, but not really. I'm Alex at Define Instagram, and today we're going to be taking a look about where Top Gear actually came from, who is actually responsible for its success, and just what exactly happened to it, because it may not be what you think. New hoodie, wheels, tires, suspension, S2000, Apple Watch that notifies me that my heart rate is too high. Dakota got a haircut and he hates it. Top Gear, ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor and subscribe. I promise our channel won't prematurely end without explanation like we're about to explain. And if you're looking for wheels and tires, please go check out our wheel brand that we just launched. It can get to your door in as little as 7 days. Our own wheel brand's called Artisa Art-Formed Wheels. And of course, if that's not enough, we got a full build giveaway plus $10,000 cash. We got like a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. But at the end of the day, be sure to check it over at fitmentindustries.com. Scroll down because there's a lot of stuff on the homepage so you can learn a little bit about it. I see what you guys do on there. You don't scroll. We need you to scroll just a little bit more so that you can learn a little bit more about what we're up to. And if not that, at least drop a comment on your favorite episode of Top Gear in the comment section below so we can reminisce. My favorite one was when they took the Hilux. Anyway, Top Gear started actually way before the names of James May, Richard Hammond, and Jeremy Clarkson became household automotive personalities. The initial show was actually founded in 1977, and it was initially purposed to educate automotive consumers on driver and safety ratings of OEM vehicles. In short, it was kind of sort of really just boring, okay? BBC would bring in some figureheads to kickstart the show to really try to expand its audience right out of the gate, including a female by the name of Angela Rippon to help garner views on this new program. 1977 was kind of a big deal, specifically because it was an automotive industry. Now, it was this initial program that ultimately spawned the Top Gear magazine. Now, you know, magazine didn't come first, magazine came second. As the automobile increased in demand and the market segmentation along with it, so too did Top Gear's content. Remember, 1977 was a hot minute ago, almost 50 years, damn. And while the show originally was more educational than it was humorous, it did evolve over the generations, and the popularity of the show grew with it, almost way faster than anybody actually imagined. Snippets of humor began to envelop the scripts. Personalities stayed relatively the same, but did experience some pretty good turnover pretty consistently, specifically going into the 80s and up until the introduction of our very own Jeremy Clarkson to the series in the late 1980s. 86, 87, 88 is when he kind of started popping his good old fluffy hair into the camera. Jeremy Clarkson's personality further spurred controversy, but not with who he was just yet. You see, the show was already in the hot seat prior to the hot head, as some might say. Top Gear was receiving plenty of complaints in regards to it encouraging illegal driving behavior, and the UK was angry that it didn't actively talk about environmental issues related to passenger vehicles. Remember all the stuff that was happening with the EPA, like in the United States? That was also happening elsewhere. How dare you, okay? Thankfully, it's the same as it is now, but back then I assume people sent in letters or postage versus just putting comments on TikToks and YouTube videos talking about how people don't care about the environment. But hey, that's a conversation for a different day. However, though, it didn't stop Top Gear from pulling in the second highest views in their program list with BBC. People absolutely adored the show. Unfortunately, the interest and boundaries that Top Gear faced with the big company BBC watching them started to cause some more turnover. Essentially, if you guys don't know, BBC holds themselves to a very high standard and will just fire people if they're not doing a very good job. It was a high expectation space, and BBC also doesn't play around when it comes to viewership and ratings. You gotta keep yourself at the top or you're getting axed, okay? And it didn't help when presenters got pulled over for like drunk driving and things like that, because back then it just kind of sort of happened and it wasn't a good thing. And just so we're clear, there were a lot of presenters during the show's timeline. There's Tom Coyne, Noel Edmonds, Frank Page, Sue Baker, Tom Tom Boswell, William Woodard, Chris Joffrey, Tony Mason, Tiff Needle, Jeff Bentley, Jeremy Clarkson from 1988 to 1999, and then he left, Mickey Fox, Quentin Wilson, Michelle Newman, Steve Barry, Adrian Simpson, Jason Barlow, Kate Humble, James May for a single year, actually, Brendan Coogan, Julie Bradbury, Bicky Henderson, Andy Wilma, and there were a few more that made it as a special appearance on the Top Gear show. That was just over the course of about 20 years. And while the original Top Gear show would end in 2001 and get spun off into a different series in Channel 5 known as the Fifth Gear, a hole was left in the automotive journalism world for some sort of snarky British commentary about cars that simply weren't good. People liked the new show, but it wasn't inherently, it did just have that edge. And there was no genuineness until now, or whatever Jeremy says. You know, he's got the voice and the teeth and the face, and he does it way better than everybody else. Top Gear would come back in 2002 thanks to the beautiful bald bastard Jeremy Clarkson and Andy Wilma. The show would repair with all the good pieces of the old show with a little extra spice to keep BBC on their toes in regards to, well, just about everything. They were very free, which is a little bit of a problem. The show's design work and content strategy was reinvigorated to capture both young and old enthusiasts in a way that began to align with the explosion of the online internet media. If you remember Soulja Boy, all right, and his claim to fame with online media, Top Gear would be that same thing over in the automotive space. And while the show started with just Richard Hammond, Jeremy Clarkson, and a man by the name of James Daw, James May would enter into the second season to replace the other James and hold the line until Jeremy's dismissal, okay? Now, for those that don't know, Top Gear is still very much a present show with its own unique styling and content. They're still making stuff. They're not dead. Maybe emotionally to people, but not actually. You can even watch the US version if that's your kind of thing. I don't know whose thing it is, but it's a thing. But after 2015, Top Gear for people like you and people like me just kind of sort of disappeared from a focus or attention or any sort of limelight. So what exactly happened? In 2015, BBC had become quite, let's call it worried with Jeremy's apparent behavior. He had been filmed using some pretty inappropriate verbiage when picking two cars, which ultimately made it onto a news channel, to which his response caused a plea of forgiveness. And this wasn't inherently the first time Jeremy may have been caught doing something like this. There was an episode in Burma where another remark had been made publicly during filming of a show to which BBC placed Clarkson on a final strike. There were license plate issues that they put into shows that people didn't catch until after it went live. They were painting words on cars that may have upset quite a few different groups, and ultimately Top Gear was getting over the wire of what was acceptable, and BBC continued to try and rein it in because at the end of the day, the show was a monumental success, so they didn't just want to stop filming the show. I mean, at the end of the day, money is money. But according to allegations, Clarkson proceeded to get into a verbal and physical altercation with a Top Gear producer by the name of Oysen Timon, and that was ultimately what broke the camel's back. Now, people argue about what the argument was about, but that really doesn't matter. It wasn't necessarily the altercation itself that caused the divorce between Jeremy and the producers, but an ever-increasing laundry list of issues that placed BBC in the limelight of ethical television broadcasting. And it was a rough time. BBC was actually getting on the hook for a lot of trouble, and it was because of Jeremy that they just didn't want to do it anymore. And it didn't take long for Top Gear to spiral into a frenzy, with new personalities coming into the mix after they booted Jeremy, and James and Richard proceeded to follow. However, I will say this, and I will say this with confidence. I love watching Chris Harris, okay? He's got the genuine energy of a car enthusiast and has, in my opinion, rightfully delivered an excellent amount of content that I have come to watch consistently on YouTube. I enjoy him. He deserves the mention. You guys, if you don't know him, go watch his stuff. It's absolutely incredible. The rest of it, though, that's up to you. Top Gear had then regressed into swapping personalities depending on their mojo with each other and continues to do so even to this day. There has been more turnover like we talked about in the original Top Gear. With more recent reports showing a steady incline in performance of the show, it still isn't back to where it used to be. Now, I'm talking about Top Gear UK. I don't really watch USA. Different conversation, different time. James May, Richard Hammond, and our very own Jeremy Clarkson would obviously then go off to Amazon to conduct their own show known as The Grand Tour, which is another automotive show, and it was pretty enjoyable. I liked it. I would say some of maybe the forced candor and arguments may have been a little bit much in season 1, but it is still a really great show, and it's not inherently the point. Top Gear had changed, and a lot of it was because the personalities that had left the channel got into a little bit of trouble. Top Gear had become a show that millions of people watched, like millions, almost so much so that it had become its own everything. Movie, DVDs, shows, things like that, magazines, special editions, challenges, live streams, etc. And I know for a fact that plenty of automotive information, opinions, and cars purchased were based on the feedback of those iconic 3 in the 2000s and into the 2010s. I used to look up the review of my own car with Top Gear before buying it because I thought it was the coolest thing ever that Jeremy Clarkson reviewed a 3000 GT VR4. I bought an SL, Jeremy did a 92 VR4, and ultimately I bought the car that afternoon even though I didn't even know manual. My dad was very confused on why I bought that car. The point is, Top Gear stood for something for enthusiasts. It had the feeling of genuine friends enjoying genuine cars. It related to us as we got into the scene and did dumb things with our cars, and the clean humor was something that kind of sort of hit a sweet spot before YouTube's digital era truly took hold. It was like YouTube before YouTube, and it was really enjoyable to be a part of. You felt like you were a part of it. And you could sit and watch their challenges over and over because it was just fun to do. And that sort of energy is just a little bit gone. Sure, there's new channels, and sure, there's even a new Top Gear, but the feeling of smiling because of what it used to genuinely be just doesn't seem to be there anymore, and it seems to only be filled with a shell of the very same thing. But again, Chris Harris, bang on job, like the dude, great content, Grand Tour, it's all right, not too bad, and everything is still kind of moving along on its own pace. But the issues with what happened to the original Top Gear is likely never ever gonna happen again because I don't think anybody is allowed to do what he did. But what do you think about Top Gear? What do you think about Top Gear USA? Let us know below, and of course, if you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. I'm Alex from Fitment Industries, and we will see you later. Peace.